I think you got to look up. You got to look to the top. Are they really customer centric? Without naming a client, I can tell you that the other day I saw the CEO walk down the hall or walk down the aisle of an airplane, shaking people's hands, thanking them for being on the plane because he was on the plane. I also saw that same CEO talking to employees, and they thought he was a rock star.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Julio Hernandez, Principal and Customer Advisory Leader at KPMG. Julio, it's great to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your role as Customer Advisory Leader at KPMG.
Yeah, so I do a couple of things. The first is I help to build our capability or our practices across the world, helping our clients basically drive profitable growth, engage with the marketplace in the right way across marketing, sales, and service with the customer experience umbrella, so to speak. Secondly, I'm responsible for that business in the United States, so I have the profit and loss responsibility for it.
You recently, KPMG, published a study that said customer expectations are now outpacing what marketers can deliver. Could you maybe expand on that a little bit and tell us what the research goes into?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, customer experience is really the new battleground for our clients and how they engage customers. That's the first thing. Second thing is most of our clients are in a battle for growth. So they're really pushing hard on this customer experience level. And what's happening is expectations are set every time you do business with the company. But you don't do just business with one industry, you do it across the industries. So what's happening is I'm taking expectations from one industry to another, and so it's a revolving wheel. And I keep expecting people to do the same experience or the better experience better, and that becomes the new norm, and then I'm looking for something else. And so it's really kind of an ever-evolving process. And we're seeing our clients really having a hard time keeping up with that and understanding where to make the investments.
Has digital made it, better for you or ramped up the expectations, do you think? Or does it differ materially by industry? How about by generation?
We launched a study called Me, My Life, My Wallet. It's a multi-generational study across consumers. We did it in 8 countries. And absolutely there's some differences between millennials and baby boomers and the silent generation and subsequent generations. However, there's also, we like to say, a little bit of millennial in all of us. And why is that? Well, we have that iPhone. Our attention span's changing. It's becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. So it's absolutely making an impact on the consumer. And that means that with digital, you have to get it right. You have to catch the attention quickly, right? So when we talk about customer experience, digital is a big part of it, but you also have the analog world, and you need to bring these things together. So yes, it plays a huge role.
Mm-hmm. And how about by industry? Any material differences by industry that you've observed?
What I would say is some industries set the pace. I would say high tech is obviously at the forefront of that, and some of the platform businesses that we talk about, so Amazon, right, Google, Apple. They're all platform businesses and they're really doing a great job with digital, but then consumers are expecting others to do the same thing. So they're maybe the vanguard, and there might be some more state industries, like for instance, you could say that state and local governments aren't as good as they need to be, but there are some that are very good. So it's really a matter of where they're putting their focus, the attention and the investment around it. But I would tell you across every sector that we're looking at, people are saying, I need to be customer obsessed, or I need to be customer centric, I need to align the organization to deliver on the customer experience I want to, and they're making the investments.
We're seeing the rise of an entirely new function, the Chief Customer Officer. Tell us about that evolution and that being raised up to sort of a C-suite position, as well as what you think the role of some of the other organizations are in supporting that function.
Right. So it's very interesting. You sometimes hear them called Chief Customer Officers, Chief Experience Officers, sometimes even CMO, who takes on that role. Really what they're trying to do is give the customer a seat at the table. And if you think about companies historically, they were very inside-out centric. I made a thing, I sold a thing, I know a consumer was buying it, a customer was buying it. Some of the biggest brands in the world actually sold their products to companies, they would call them customers, who then sold their product to consumers. And people are saying, I really need to understand who's buying my stuff. I really need to understand who they are. So there's this need to really understand the customer. And so that's why you have the rise of the Chief Customer Officer. The second thing is because companies are really competing on customer experience, they need to get the organization aligned around the customer and understand what they need to do to execute. And that's hard. That's an orchestration job. So one of the things I say about Chief Customer Officers is it's very much an orchestration job. It's very much an influence job. And it's a tough job, but it's a required job and a needed job.
Tell us a little bit about the economics around customer experience, particularly as the customer journeys have gotten increasingly complex, and you could ultimately wind up spending, to the moon and back.
Right.
How do you strike the right balance?
It's a great question. First and foremost, customer experience is here to stay, right? We also know the research we do, so we've got a customer think tank, customer experience think tank. We did a study last year where we studied 14 countries, who the leaders were around customer experience. We talk about what we call our 6 pillars, that really companies that do it well do 6 things and focus on 6 things. But what you're seeing with customer experience is, if you deliver a great one, you generally endear more repeat business, more loyalty, maybe sometimes even more advocacy. And so that's really good for the business. The challenge is that you'll hear a company say, I need to deliver a great customer experience. I need to wow my customers. And that's where I start to part a little bit company, because I think you have to deliver the right customer experience. You have to set the expectations, you need to manage the expectations, and then you need to deliver to the promise that you made. When you over-deliver on the customer experience, oftentimes you actually increase your cost basis, and that costs a lot of money. There are some exceptions when you use digital technologies that actually deliver a better customer experience at a lower cost. So you have to strike the right balance to get the economics right.
So maybe drilling down on that a little bit, what are some examples of companies that you think are hitting that brand advocacy, really, really well?
Well, I would say that Apple's got a great product out there. I would say that their platform for the most part is great. And I would say that their business, has been designed around how that experience is going to be. They're a very experience-centric company. I would also say that Amazon, they're customer obsessed. They've built their business around it. But what they think about is, what does the consumer want? They think about, how am I going to engage the consumer? But they spend more time thinking about how to get it right, how to operationalize it. So those are great examples of where customer experience is doing well. And interestingly, those 2 companies are actually doing unbelievably well when you look at their valuations and their market caps. And so I think there's this idea that, yes, you can have a platform business, but the customer experience that wraps around it is a self-sustaining thing and basically starts to really create an ecosystem that works for you. And they put the customer at the heart.
Apple's an example of a company that started online, selling through other people, and now has their physical stores. Tell us a little bit about the state of Omnichannel today, and is anybody really getting that seamless, online offline experience right?
Well, let me put it this way. I think everyone has an opportunity to up their game. So I'd rather not talk about who the leaders are. What I'd like to talk about is the need to get it right. Mm-hmm. And what I'd like to talk about is not just the omni-channel perspective. When we talk about omni-channel and we talk to our clients about it, we actually talk about what we call a connected enterprise. And really, let me just talk about that for just a moment. Connected enterprise thinks about, how do I connect with the consumers that I want to do business with? And then how do I enable my business to do that in the right way? So that means you've got to manage your customers, it means you've got to manage your employees, because you're not going to have a great customer experience if the employees don't have a good customer experience. You're going to have to get your organization to work in the right way. You're also going to need to manage your partners right, because most businesses don't do things themselves the right way all the time. They leverage other partners. And lastly, you got to be connected to the digital ecosystem. And when we talk about that, people go, oh, you know what? I used to think about omnichannel as just being marketing and sales service functions, or the website, or the telephone channel, or the associate in the store. But now I need to think about the supply chain. And I actually need to think about billing, because you know what? I send you a bill every month, and if that's not right, then I'm not giving you a good omnichannel experience. And so really what we call it is connected enterprise, because you got to bring all those parties together. And there's lots of work to do there, but there's lots of technologies that are helping.
How about instilling, this sort of customer-inspired ethos into the culture of a company?
Yes.
Operationally, how do some companies do this?
Well, first and foremost, it starts with that ethos. We got to do right by our customers. We got to do right by our employees. We got to deliver on the promise that we made to the customer and to the marketplace. And I think that really starts there. I can think of numerous examples that were turnaround situations where actually were done by lawyers, but they were incredibly customer-centric. They really held up a mirror to the organization and said, this is the customer. This is who we serve. We don't serve the corporate office. We serve the customer. So it really starts at the top. Then I think the second thing is they really develop a keen understanding of who their customers are and their needs. They really get a multi-dimensional view of the customer. We call this the 5 My's, right? In terms of what's their motivation, how do I connect with them, how do I grab their attention, what do they have in their wallet, and how do they value their time? And a combination of all those is a really great way to understand who the customer is. And then they design experiences that make sense, and then they get the organization aligned to deliver.
Automation is one of the areas that's really potentially going to bring a lot of change to customer experiences. Can you share some examples of how automation is being used to massively enhance a customer experience?
Contact centers, workflow, All of these areas are great, right? So if I know I have to do 3 or 4 tasks in a row and I can automate them and I can have workflow with it, it's perfect. If I can inject that workflow with analytics so I know the right thing at the right time, even better. It's a battle for relevance, right? It's a battle for being really relevant in the moment. Some people like to call it personalization. I call it relevance, right? And I think that automation can help some of that relevance. I think workflow can help some of that, analytics on top of it. So it's a combination of digital means that really can help enhance the customer experience.
How does voice begin to play a part? We've seen the rise of chatbots and things like that in the customer experience world.
Very interesting. There are some folks that say, oh, voice is going to be everything. But if you ask people where they use voice mostly, it's in their car, right? Because they're driving or it's something like that.
Yeah.
Also, they tend to be by themselves. So imagine if you were in the office and you were using voice technology and all your colleagues were using voice technology. That'd be kind of weird, right? So I think voice is going to play a huge role and people are going to want it. But they're also going to want to use the other channels. Some of the areas where I think voice is going to be interesting, though, is imagine that you're a consumer goods company and you're launching a new product. You can't see it, right? If you start buying things and reordering things, and you have a punch list from your grocery store, and I reintroduce a new product, how are you really going to ask for it? Because you haven't seen it. So I think there's some questions here that are still out there, but it's absolutely here to stay. People are using it, they like it, and the adoption of that channel is great. With many of my clients, they think about how do I use that channel in conjunction with the other channels to have a really great experience.
Yeah, I think that question that you raised, branding, on a voice shelf, is a really, really big open question.
I think it's a huge question. I can get my head wrapped around reorder and a lot of things and information gathering, but new product introduction is one that I'm still trying to get my head, what's the right way to do that?
One of the questions we love asking is a book that you'd like to recommend to our viewers.
Well, I'm a kind of a geek, so I read the whole Dune series when I was younger, and I'm rereading them, and I like that, right? So that's my way of stepping out of the business world and stepping out of the family world and just kind of geeking out. So it's not going to help any of your readers be that much greater, but just read the books, don't watch the movie.
That's awesome. Thanks,
Thank
Julio.
you. Cheers.
That was Julio Hernandez, Principal and Customer Advisory Leader at KPMG.